Morning, Trainiacs. Lionel Sanders did not win this weekend. Very much did not win, and we're going to talk about that. So, coming into full Ironman Mont-Tremblant, Lionel Sanders was the odds-on favorite. It was basically, I think, kind of understood that Lionel was going to win this. However, not only did he not win, but he finished 13.5 minutes back from the eventual winner, Cody Beals, who was making his full Ironman debut. Now, that's not to say that Cody Beals didn't have a good race. He actually set a new bike and full course record going 8:10:36. He had an amazing day. Congratulations to Cody Beals. But Lionel has been showing the amazing power, run, and swim numbers that he's been putting out on his YouTube channel. And they're like all-time best numbers that he's ever done. Then he goes to Ironman Mont-Tremblant, basically walks a ton of the marathon, had to go about 100 watts down from where he normally is in the bike. It was about as close to a disaster as you can get, relatively speaking, because Lionel did still finish second. And while I don't believe Kona was a failure, I think Lionel had a ton of motivation from Kona to be the best athlete that he could possibly be and start looking at areas that he could potentially end up improving on. But then he went to half Ironman Oceanside, where Jan Frodeno laid the smack down on him. And at that point, I think Lionel was committed to making as many changes as he could. He's always working on the swim, but he's really started committing to the Tower 26 swim program. The bike, he's got a new bike position. On the run, he's talked about being a lot more efficient, focusing on having his chest forward and his head nice and upright. And then a couple of the bigger things are he's teased on Instagram how he's been spending time at the Gatorade Endurance Lab, working with them on dialing in his race day nutrition. But the biggest change is I don't think he's outright come and said it, but he switched to a vegan or vegetarian diet and lost, I've heard rumors, as much as going from high 160s down to low 150s. So let's analyze point for point where I think Lionel went wrong, with the big caveat that I love you, Lionel. I don't think any less of you as an athlete. I think these are lessons that are going to make you a better athlete. So number one, the swim. He came out only 5 minutes down, and it was basically the worst conditions possible for a non-backgrounded swimmer. So it was fresh water, it was a non-wetsuit swim. These are conditions that lead to people's body position sinking, and for Lionel to be only 5 minutes down in this kind of condition, I think actually shows that he had a great swim. The bike, this is where things tended to fall apart. And he says that in the first chunk of the bike, he held his power of target 300 watts, but in the last hour of the bike leg, he dropped all the way down to 220 watts, which he can basically do single leg pedaling at home. Now, I think that with a new fit and a new position, you can have a little bit of a deterioration of comfort and power until you adjust to it, but we're talking like 1 to 3 or 4%, not 20 to 30%. I think that shows that there's something else that's more critical leading into the race that has contributed to that. We're going to get to that. The run, pure disaster. He was ready to give up entirely on the run and basically admitted that in the back half of the run, in order to not do damage to his body in preparation for Kona, that he was going to have to basically mail in the back half of the marathon. And while he probably could have gutted it out and been closer to somewhere in that 7 to 10 minutes behind Cody Beals range, he didn't want to suffer so much to the detriment of his Kona race. I think that's smart. But let's go back, and I think that what ended up causing this that he talks about is what he did in the weeks and particularly the 2 days leading up to Ironman Mont-Tremblant. What Lionel says is that switching to that more vegetarian, vegan diet has allowed him to lose about 10 pounds in the course of 12 weeks. That's actually fairly healthy weight loss. Anywhere around a pound a week is very sustainable, it's very gradual and very healthy. I think where it goes wrong is a couple of instances in my experience. Number one, Lionel said that 2 days out from the race, he weighed himself. He stepped on the scale and he saw 160 pounds and he went, oh, that's too heavy. I guess what was happening is he was starting to load up, replenish his glycogen stores by eating a little bit more carbs, a little bit more fluids, and he all of a sudden saw a heavier number on the scale when he was more used to like 155, and he freaked out. And he said that he started reducing his caloric intake, specifically with carbs. Meanwhile, you've got athletes like Sam Long, who is crushing a pint of ice cream. And you look at pro after pro after pro on social media that in the last 2 days before a big race, they're saying, so long diet, it's time to carb load. And in my experience, the last 2 days, your weight really doesn't matter. You didn't lose it all in the matter of 2 days, so you're not going to gain it all in the matter of 2 days. You might retain a little bit of water. Your muscles might be a little bit fuller because they're retaining more glycogen. You might have a little bit of extra food in your digestive tract, but it's not like you've literally made yourself heavier. And as Lionel says, he thinks he developed a little bit of an eating disorder, being so obsessed with being lean and light that he let himself come into that race flat. Also, he didn't talk about this at all, but as I've mentioned, I eat a lot of vegan meals. I'm not a vegan. I would say I eat 90 to 95% of my meals are plant-based. I find that as I start training more, if I only eat plant-based, I get very, very tired. There are just a lot of nutrients that animal products, things like organic eggs, grass-fed beef, stuff like that, that you literally can't get from plants, or if you can get them, it's hard to source and it's not very bioavailable, so you've got to eat so much of it that it's actually hard to get as many nutrients as you possibly can. Because Lionel has only been doing this for about 12 weeks, I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve that he's got to go through to figure out how to make it healthy, sustainable, and result in good performance. That's a bigger balancing act than just being light.
Yeah, nothing big change needs to happen other than I think I just need to eat more, to be honest with you. I'm getting too lean and I'm doing it the wrong way too.
And then just touching on the Gatorade endurance work that he's been doing and what was available on the course, he said that Gatorade endurance wasn't available on the course, just typical Gatorade was. So would that have made a massive difference? I don't think it would make the difference that resulted in this performance. I think it's something bigger than that, and that's more of his overall nutrition. Now, do I think that he is a lesser athlete for any of this? No. I think if you look at his training logs, if you look at the videos that he's done, if you look at the video that he did after the race, he talks about this being a lesson that he needed to learn coming into Kona. And if you look at the weeks and weeks of training that he's done leading into this in more controlled conditions, I don't think that this race is indicative of the level of fitness that he's going to be bringing into Kona, and he's still one of my favorites to win that event. He just had a tough day and had some hard lessons to learn. So, with all that said, sorry you had to go through that, Lionel. And if you aren't yet subscribed and you like more content about Lionel Sanders, we have an entire playlist for you over here. And make sure that you're subscribed because we're going to be at Kona covering a lot of that, and we'll see how Lionel does. And if you are subscribed, you are like an organic, delicious omelet. It's just like, oh man, that's good. No. A poached egg sandwich. Oh, yeah, that's really good. With a little bit of avocado on top. Tell me about it. Whoa.